Welcome to RGV On the Rise, a limited series podcast about the economy and opportunities of Hidalgo County, the Rio Grande Valley, and South Texas. Please say hello to today's guest.
Welcome, Criminal District Attorney Toribio Terry Palacios, who's joining us to discuss a disquieting subject, domestic violence. It's an issue, Mr. Palacios, that's kept behind closed doors fairly frequently. What is your office doing to raise awareness?
Well, we have several events starting in October. For instance, a proclamation. We have a coalition between all the counties where we get together and invite students and victims and the public to make them aware that domestic violence is a problem.
How significant a problem is it in Hidalgo County?
We've had over 7,200 reported cases of domestic violence, and that's quite a bit for Hidalgo County.
Does that span across the spectrum of age and gender, or how does that work?
It spans. It spans from the income, age, all over the place. It's happening.
And how is your office combating this problem?
Well, we try to take these very serious because a lot of there's been some that resulted in homicides. So we take them serious. These are very hard cases because it's hard to report and prosecute somebody you love or you think you love. And those are the issues we have to deal with.
Is it a situation where I want to press charges and then later on, no, I don't really want to do that?
Exactly. And you know what? And because they don't realize there's resources out there for them. You don't have to be a victim. There are resources, but a lot of times you have no other choice. He's the breadwinner in your family. Your kids are going to be separated. You may lose. You can't afford your house. And they make any ways to try to make things work. They're trying to make things work so they could continue living.
And earlier this month, in order to raise awareness, you all hosted something called Purple Day. Wondering if you could talk a little bit about that Purple Day, the Survivor March, and explain how it helps survivors overall.
Well, basically, it's an awareness for not only our survivors, it's for the public, to letting them know that there are resources out there. And that's why we bring survivors up front and saying, look, there is help out there. Even though it's a private issue, a lot of times you feel it's private, it affects all our community. So even though you think it's private, it's not. It's something that affects our community all the time.
And what other lessons can be learned from these survivors?
Well, basically, what happens from what we learn from these survivors is what happened, how you can do things different, how counseling can change not only the victim but the defendant also. We try to teach them that that's not the way you need to live. There's other resources. It's about our community. It's about helping one another, and it's about even though you think it's private, because it happens under your roof most of the time.
Now, in addition to the We Are Unbreakable event that you hosted earlier this month, you're involved in a second event, and I think it's actually tomorrow, and that's involving the Rio Grande District Attorneys Coalition. First off, can you tell me what this coalition is all about?
Well, myself, Luis Science, Gocha from Stark County, Luis Science is from Cameron, and that Hosa from Willis County, we formed a coalition amongst DAs to bring awareness not only to our counties but to our whole area. I mean, domestic violence doesn't happen just because there's a border or there's a different county. It happens all over the place. We all travel to the island, back up north of Edinburgh, and to Rio Grande City. So we have an issue, and basically it just helps us make this problem. It's basically about awareness.
So it's not unique locally. It is pervasive, I would imagine, across the country.
Oh, yes, it is. I mean, down here, we haven't compared numbers from upstate, but we know we have an issue, the same issue Cameron has. We have the same issue. Stark County has the same issue. So we're working together to see if we could, get our resources together to try to prevent this from happening, trying to be a little proactive.
And now this coalition, I'm assuming, is prioritizing the issue of domestic violence.
That is correct. We're trying to handle and communicate with one another in reference to if it happened in Cameron County and they come again in Hidalgo County. We're trying to work with each other to make sure we do the right thing for our victims and their families.
And what other steps are you taking to take this on, if you will, on a regional basis?
Basically, it's a communication, working with our resources, not only with our state partners, officers, personnel, but with our federal officers. Everybody works together to try to combat this.
We said earlier that it is a region-wide problem. Is it something that you are affecting? I'm assuming this coalition has been in place for longer than this year, and I'm just wondering what impact you've had so far on domestic violence.
Well, I think we're hoping just to bring awareness for now and trying to bring our numbers down for domestic violence. And basically, I think working all together, we make more noise. The bigger the noise, the more people are going to be aware of it, and letting them know that there is help out there.
And how has the community responded to the efforts of this coalition?
I think our response is very good. I mean, we work with Mujeres Unidas, other nonprofit organizations that are there for women, Angels of Love. All those nonprofit organizations work together with us to try to bring awareness.
Now, this coalition, you're having an event tomorrow at UTRGV. Is it important to reach out to the youth regarding the issue of domestic violence?
It's very important because, sometimes, well, a lot of times when there's domestic violence at home, you learn it from your parents and the kids learn it and they think that's the way to live. And that's not the way it should be. We got to break the cycle of violence. So we're trying to bring awareness. We're trying to bring resources to them so they can know that they don't have to be victims. They have the rights. They have to be confident enough to try to take the step to end this violence. And a lot of times it's not easy, and nobody's going to tell our victims that it is easy, but it's got to be done so we could break the violence. Or else it's going to continue and continue.
So you're obviously taking many steps to raise awareness. I'm just curious about how the survivors of domestic violence are reacting to the efforts that are being undertaken on their behalf.
Well, I think since they survived them, they want to go out there and voice and let the victims or the victims to be, let them know, hey, look, there are resources. There is help through Mujeres Unidas. There is housing. There is safety plans you can follow. You don't have to be treated that way. And now it's expanding even to dating relationships, not only to people you live with or your spouse, but to dating relationships also.
Can you kind of walk us through the steps of someone who is concerned about domestic violence, who's being a victim of the domestic violence? They reach out to you, to law enforcement. How does this work?
There's several people you could start reaching out to. First, I would try to reach out to your local PDs. Every PD should have an advocate, and they should guide you. If not, reach out to Mujeres Unidas, reach out to the DA's office. We have a QR code you can get from us where it tells you exactly what you need to do step by step. They'll give you a safety plan. They'll help you through this process.
And is the initial step beyond reporting the domestic violence a safety plan to escape the situation, or is it something that is assessed first before you initiate such a drastic measure?
We teach them that it starts with verbal abuse, and then it escalates to physical abuse, and then it may escalate to homicide. So we need to let them know that don't let this just go. You need to report this. If you have a daughter that's getting hit or somebody that's being a victim, you need to report this. And sometimes I know it's not easy, but you got to do it. We got to stop this. There is resources out there to help.
And I'm assuming part of that, beyond kind of the criminal component, is a civil component, and that is resources to keep the abuser away.
Sure, we got right away. There's an emergency. If you're a victim of domestic violence, as soon as they make that arrest, there's an emergency protective order. And usually that emergency protective order is good from anywhere from 60 to 90 days, depending on the facts. And then that gives you time to come to the D's office and get something more permanent. And that order could be up to from 2 years all the way to a lifetime protective order, if need be. And just because you say it's a lifetime, you could always come back and try to modify that if things work out, if your spouse or your loved one gets counseling, changes, that stuff can change. But we ask that you come protect not only yourself but your children and anybody that's living with you.
Now, I know a lot of law enforcement agencies across the country have a zero tolerance policy with regard to domestic violence. If they go to a domestic call, they see evidence of domestic violence, no questions asked, you are under arrest. Is that something that is in place in the Rio Grande Valley?
That's actually in place in all the state of Texas. There's a zero tolerance, and actually you can't even give a magistrate can't even give a person recognizance bond when it comes down to a family violence case.
Recognizance bond, what is that?
A PR bond or a person recognizance bond is where you sign yourself out and you don't have to pay anybody to get out.
Okay.
Now, that's not, you cannot do that as a magistrate. And then a lot of times you used to be able to, but laws change. Now they're going to have to actually pay to get out. So a lot of times those are protections to make sure that these people get some time, at least 24 to 72 hours, to either recover, contact Mujeres Unidas, or some type of advocate to help them out.
So it is state law then that has this no tolerance policy in place?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. So that suggests that the awareness of domestic violence is actually having an impact not only in the Valley but across the state and I'm assuming the United States.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it is. It is. There is a big awareness on this. We do have some homicides and people getting aggravated assault and felony offenses and choking and all the way to Class C. So.
And are you seeing, because of your efforts to raise the level of awareness, that more people are inclined to make that initial call?
Yes, I believe so. We serviced over 7,200 people back in 2023, and that's a lot of people to service in 1 year. So that is good for awareness. That is good to try to stop the violence. That is good to try to stop the cycle of violence.
Hidalgo Criminal District Attorney Terry Palacios, thank you so much for your time and for the insight on this. And tomorrow is the second of your events regarding domestic violence awareness, and it's on the campus of RGV in Edinburgh, correct?
That is correct. That's right. We're going to be out there, of course, giving awareness. There's going to hopefully be a skit out there showing what family violence does and how it affects people.
Thank you again so much for your time.
In our next episode, we have an enlightening conversation with the Hidalgo County tax assessor and collector about property tax bills and a new law that will save most homeowners money. Join us on October 30th for episode 4 of RGV on the Rise.